Can you guys hear me?
Friday. Yeah,
Okay, good. Yeah,
those
John.
docks look unreal. That is so cool.
Yeah, I looked at Code Sandbox before. They didn't have embedded support for cloud sandboxes, but since I started writing the docs, they now do.
Oh, that's awesome. What's it called? Code Sandbox?
Yeah,
Is that
they
like a
also have
crate or
it's just a website. They're mostly for JavaScript demo things right now. Um, it's I think it uses something for the cloud version. It uses a Docker container.
oh, so are you like embedding like an iframe or something?
Yeah,
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. That's so cool.
they
I
also
was
have an
oh
API
sorry.
to automatically generate the frame things. So we should be able to get it working for all of the examples as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Something I was investigating like not so long ago, there was a tool I was using to create C4 model diagrams and like it spits out like an HTML and I figured out how to host that on like GitHub pages, but always wondered about hosting diagrams like that that are interactive in an iframe. And like it sounds like you can, I wonder if you can do like interactive mermaid diagrams or something through iframes like you're doing. Um, I guess it would just be JavaScript or Rust like graphing stuff, but that's cool.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. There's two different things we're embedding in the doc site now. Most of the demos are just Dioxus components that are injected at compile time into there. There are also uh, the iframe things. The only time we use Code Sandbox is when we need a server running. So it's only for the full stack stuff right now. For the rest of it, it is a little bit overkill.
Oh, makes sense. That's really cool. The I can't remember what I was going to say, but it was along that lines. Oh yeah, I really liked that blog that I guess John wrote too about with all the diagrams. Um, I I don't know if a lot of those are going to be in like the docs, but there was a lot of visuals. I was like, oh, God bless this. Thank you.
I have a bunch of diagrams to that. I added a couple diagrams like that using a web render page and a few
I saw
more
that.
to
Yeah.
contributing. Um, a lot more interactive stuff.
Um, do you have a link to the new one? I think I was hitting a 404 with the one I had, but I just lost the link.
Yes. Yeah, Doge got it.
Sweet. Yeah, this choosing the web render. I remember this part. Where else did you add the diagrams?
There's a new diagram in the walk through the internals, I think. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Is that near the bottom?
Yeah, this diagram is a little bit more crazy, but it like shows everything that happens in the virtual DOM crate and how all the different parts interact.
Oh, that's unreal. Is that related to, I think someone shared something like that the other day and um let's walk through the
Yeah,
internals. There it is. Oh,
someone asked me
cool.
about it in the contributing channel, I think. So I just added it to the docs.
That's cool. Like this type of stuff, it looks just like a C4 model. Have you ever seen those?
I have not.
Um I don't think I'm
Oh, you see it now. Yeah.
posting one anymore, but let me
Yeah,
share a link because you might find it
C4
interesting.
charts look interesting,
Oh,
kind of
yeah, it might
similar.
not be .com.
Just looking up C4 model, I see some charts.
There's yeah, there was one that a tool I used called Illograph. Um, and I'll share this so you can see what happens. But this, like, I got the like there was a license for like a paid version, and I got this to try to do exactly what you're doing with diagrams. Um, so those diagrams you're showing, you can like click and dive into scope, like, and keep going into scope. So like C4 model, there's like four main scopes. There's like the organizational level scope. So like this is the business aspect, and then it dives into like your service level scope, and then like your code level scope. I can't remember all four. I'm missing one, but it's been a while since I touched it. But if you open the link, you'll see like the dude clicking on things, and it just kind of zooms in. Mermaid has this type of stuff now. I just don't know if it's interactive. Um, it might. I just thought it was cool. It's probably not like important now, but it's a cool thing to see.
I haven't seen any interactive things in Mermaid, but maybe.
They
Yeah,
do do
that's
the
C4, but
C4
it's not
though.
interactive.
Yeah, I don't think it's interactive too. I think Illograph is the only one that I've seen that does it, and they. I don't think their free tier lets you export the HTML. Like I just bought a license to see what it was like to export it and to put that on a GitHub page. It might be still open. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I put it, but it's kind of cool. Sorry, sidetrack. Just seeing what you had in the docs reminded me of that because that looks like one of the third or fourth level scopes that you see where it's like walking you through what's going on.
Yeah. Speaking of the blog post, did you have any feedback about that?
Um, I didn't read it thoroughly. I just saw a lot of images, and I was very happy with that. I'll go back and read it today. I've been in the auth world right now. Um, just trying to find where the link is. It was in marketing, right? Yeah. I loved the logo and all the images in it, but I didn't read it thoroughly.
All right, I just put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I found it in marketing. A lot was like server functions and suspense, right? And I don't think those are relevant to me, so I kind of skipped that stuff. But
Yeah,
the enum router part and the interactive docs. This is nice.
there's a bunch of sections that aren't finished yet as well.
Are you getting good feedback on the enum router?
I think from people who have like gone through and learned it, yes, but for like first impressions, bad.
Yeah, because it looks a
Yeah.
lot different than what you would expect, right?
Hmm. You did something similar with an enum router, but they don't have the same nesting syntax we have.
No, I think mentioned that in the PR. Um, like you can nest an enum in an enum there, like they use switches or something like that. They call it something like that.
Let me see exactly what it looks like. I knew they used nested enums to do it. The thing with nested enums is you can't have dynamic parameters that you nest, which
That's
could
what
be okay.
I was I like I'm not the expert on this. You did research, so for me, it's like I'm gonna use what you decided to use because I trust you. um, like I wouldn't know what the problems of nesting an enum router would be, and I don't hate the syntax now that I've used it. Um, it's just
I might
you,
I might add like a section of the doc that says, wait, don't leave yet, or something that explains why the syntax looks like that. There
yeah.
are reasons behind it, but from first impressions, I agree, it looks bad.
It's just different. Like it's with being able to nest the enum routers, it's not it's much more easy on the eyes. Like it's not so convoluted. Like there's a lot of content in a very small amount of space when you're using all those like those attributes. Um,
Yeah.
but if it's for a purpose, it's like it's something you can easily get past. Um, I'm trying to find where they do the nested router. I think it was in an example that I saw it mostly when I was working at it, but I'm just trying to look through their docs now.
Yeah, I see their nested
Here
router.
it is. Yeah, it's right at the bottom, nested router. So it's literally a whole bunch of enums that they just nest.
Okay, so instead of having components and each route is tied to a component, they have that as a separate function.
Yeah, so they're like embedding the component, right? Like it's like a match statement. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the match
that's
statement in,
that's the switch.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, switch main, switch settings, that's auto-generated in the Dioxus version.
yeah, exactly. And I think that when you compare your like nested router with what you might have to do like with the U nested router, I think it's like you can see why there's value in doing it your way. Like if you just take a moment to understand the reasoning, because it's like I would imagine it's less code at the end of the day. Like here you have two functions and two enums, right? For you, it's just one enum. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, so there were a few different reasons we chose to do a flattened router instead of this. So you don't have to write the switch statement manually. And
Yeah,
since you only have one enum, it makes the route a lot shorter. I don't really care about the definition being longer because that you only do it once. But if you link to a page a whole bunch of times, you want to not have like 5 levels of nested enums. That makes the link really long.
yeah. And like at first I was like worried about the syntax, but then I just told myself like I don't know this shit that like Evan does. Like learn this, and then now that I've learned it, I quite enjoy it. It's just like I think there would be that user like that initial user shock of some like you see attributes and it's a little shocking, I feel, especially if you're newer to Rust because you're not so comfortable with attributes yet. um I like what you were saying about adding like don't leave yet, this is why we do it.
Yeah. I
Like
think
that reasoning is really powerful.
for most users, they don't need more than like the first chapter of the router book. It's just like, here's how you create simple routes. Here's how you do dynamic parameters, and that's it. They don't need to use layouts or nesting. Fine. And if you don't use layouts or nesting, you don't have weird indentation going on, and then looks fine. Oh
The
no, I didn't start the
indentation
event.
isn't so bad as it was before, right? Oh no, the event didn't start?
uh, okay.
Oh no. Hello? Are we still in here? There's 7 people interested.
Yeah, I mean, Mark didn't show up, so
That's okay. Um, it was just making me think about how the office hour event happens. And like Surreal DBs runs literally like the hour before this. Like for me, it's like 11 to 12, and then this is 12 to 1, or they usually go 11 to 11:30. But what they do is they have a stage that is in the Discord. So like they can be on video, and with the stage being there, the chat um, is maintained for all of the office hours. So if you wanted to see like previous conversation or make sure you can see the chat, all you do is like you have to jump back into the stage and all that history is still there. Um, I don't
do
know
they
if
have
that
a separate stage for every office hours?
they have a single stage, and whenever the office hour event starts, it's on the stage.
So you can go back in the office hours chat to the very first office hours right now, but there
Let's
isn't like separators.
under well that's the same with the stage. It's just like this. It's an office hours audio, right? Like, is this a
I
stage?
I'm not sure. I didn't set up this.
Because the way that their event points you to the event also, like it takes you to the stage. Um, I don't know. Okay, thanks, Doge. Shit, I'll get used to that one day.
Yeah, I wonder if Surreal TV did the same thing we did. We like kind of tried to look at what times would be good across different time zones,
Mhm.
figure out something that works.
Yeah, they're in the UK, so I'm imagining they did something similar. Are your Fridays going well? Like, what do you guys got going on today?
This is the first thing I did in the morning.
Oh shit, I forgot. It's like what, 10 o'clock for you?
Yeah, it's 9:30 right now.
Oh, 9:30. My bad. When does school start, Doge? Is it uni or? Oh, nice. Are you excited? Do you have any like plans of where you want to go after? I think I in Canada we have like two types of like post high school education. We have like something called like college and then something called university, which is kind of confusing because in the States, like I feel like people call it like college or university and it means the same thing. But here there's like college tends to be more like technically focused and university is more like theoretical. I got to do both, which was kind of cool, but um, it's like a big decision, I guess. Nice. Do you want to do computer science or like engineering? Oh, cool. Mechatronics is pretty cool. I did mechanical engineering, and that was like one of the components of it. There was a specialization track for mechatronics. I just did the a bit of everything track, but the mechatronics stuff was really cool. They work with a lot of embedded systems too. You and John went to the same university, right, Evan? Or did I see that wrong on LinkedIn?
Uh, I don't remember what university John went to.
Oh, never mind. I thought you guys knew each other for a long time. Sorry. I don't know
No,
if
I
I saw
just
that.
got to know him when I started contributing to Dioxus.
Oh,
Learned a
that's
lot through that.
hilarious. That's cool. Did you go to uni in the like around where you grew up or?
Yeah, I went to a community college, and then I'm going to be starting at University of Kansas next semester.
Oh shit, that's so cool. What are you taking? Comp sci?
Yeah,
So you've done all this and you haven't even taken a comp sci course yet? What the hell?
I've taken a couple of consci courses in high school.
That's insane. I'm like struggling to get to you guys' level of coding, and you guys are like, oh, I'm just starting like school next year. This is awesome. Did you like start coding from a young age, or what made you want to get into it?
Yeah, my dad, he used to be a programmer, does project management now, but yeah, he got me interested in it. More like embedded stuff when I moved into higher level things.
Nice.
But
Is
my
that
first
why you
language
chose
was
Rust?
no, actually, at that time I was doing more higher level stuff. I chose Rust because I was writing a language that had macros, and I realized Rust macro system was just better. So
That's so cool.
my first like real programming language was C++, so kind of that background.
That was my first language in school too, but I only ever did in like one course in it. In mechanical engineering, we didn't get to do too much programming, but what we did was like C++ or MATLAB, and that was it. I guess some Bash too, because like a lot of the CNC machines and like CAD software that you have to use, you have to like sometimes post process the like the machine code or G code that's output for the specific types of machines. But other than that, didn't get to do too much. I think my first language was JavaScript, um, and then it was Python, and then a bit of Go and PHP at my last job, and a little bit of Java, and then Rust was like this stuff. But I'm not an expert in anything, just trying to get by.
Yeah, I think the JavaScript ecosystem is very interesting. So they're like it's a very dynamic language, but then they add a bunch of checking on top of that, and they have macros that are maybe more powerful than Rust. So they have some things they can do with like full scope analysis that Rust can't do.
Yeah, that's I don't know what the benefit of that would be. Is there a reason you would want to do full scope analysis?
Yeah, so I worked on this toy project for a while called QK. It's like another Rust WebAssembly framework that does reactivity at compile time. So instead of uh, like when you write to something, it reruns a dynamic list of scopes that uh, the thing is using or are using the data. You know the list of scopes at compile time, and you automatically rerun those. What that helps you do is just make the binary sizes really, really tiny. It's
That's
like
like all the
half of an
minified
ounces.
JFS you see.
Um, no, it wasn't in JavaScript. It was in Rust,
Oh,
but you
okay,
could do
sorry.
it in JavaScript. This is basically what Svelte does, right? It was a little bit more advanced in Svelte because in Svelte you have to do assignments for reactivity. You like set something equal to something else, and that tells Svelte that you changed something. Then it knows to rerun all of the things that were depending on that data. In my thing, if you call a function on it, it just works. So you could do like dot push, and it would rerun everything. But to make that work in like between components, you need to analyze the whole program, which is difficult to do in Rust. You can kind of do it with a compiler plugin, but there's not a lot of great examples of compiler plugins out there.
No, I only looked into that very briefly. I think because of something you had said about doing through the compiler when I think I was trying to implement like um, that index number being like a string or an integer. Um, but I didn't understand it. It's like this is over my head.
Oh
I think you
yeah.
were, yeah, I think
Yeah. You don't need a compiler plugin for that at all. I was thinking around. You just need a
no,
trait there.
yeah, I don't think it was related to that. I think you were just like talking about macros or something, and there was like a limitation and something you have to do with compiler plugins. It wasn't related to that PR. It was just I think the conversation just stemmed because that was like around the topic.
Well, in that PR, you want something that's a variable, and if you want to know the type of that variable in the macro, you need a compiler plugin. I think that's
That's
what
what
we
I
were
think
talking
it
about.
might have been. Yeah,
I
might have
think
been
in
around that.
JavaScript or TypeScript macros, you could do that.
My
You
memory's
could
not the
technically
best
do it
because
in
I have
Rust.
like so many tools on the go and like trying to learn that like I often forget and then I have to relearn, but it's all slowly sinking in. I was playing with OpenID Connect a bit today finally. I've been kind of afraid to dive into it, but it was it seems it's just built on top of OAuth 2, which is good, but the discovery stuff always freaks me out because I'm like, I don't know if like you're supposed to set up like your own identity provider. So in my head, I didn't know what was going on there, but I think Auth0 um, is already based on OpenID Connect, and you can use that as the provider. So as long as you can use the OpenID Connect crate instead of maybe the OAuth2 crate, I think it'll work out all right. I'm trying to do that today. No on an instrument, but I'm trying to build a social music discovery app. So I love music. Do you play an instrument? Nice. I dabbled in guitar like when I was in high school. Yeah, man. I tried picking it up the other day and my like pads of my fingers just get so numb. That goes away in a few weeks. You're gonna build calluses. Do you have an electric or an acoustic? if if the finger stuff is really bothering you and you can switch to nylon strings instead of the steel, it's a little easier on your fingers at first. It just not as twangy. The sound is a little different. Yeah, it literally goes away in a week or two. Do you do tabs or are you reading music? Yeah, that's how I did it too. I like tabs. I feel tabs are easier for guitar by a long shot than reading music too. But I've always wanted to in like elementary school I played like clarinet and I could read music then. I can't anymore. It's like it would be a cool skill. Piano would be good for that. Do you play anything, Evan?
No, I used to play clarinet, and a little bit of piano,
I got
like
suckered
electric
into
keyboard.
clarinet. Oh, you play keyboard?
Yeah, not real piano keyboard, but yeah, not very much. Was never very good at it.
Nice. I think in elementary school they were like we had like an option of I don't know like three or four instruments. It was like clarinet, flute, trumpet, or something else. But they sold you on doing clarinet because they're like if you play the clarinet, you can upgrade to saxophone later. So you're like, oh, I don't want to play the flute. I should have picked trumpet. That would have been way better.
Yep, they always sell you on the saxophone.
Yeah, is that
You
what
have to play it for
happened?
so many years to get to the saxophone, though.
I know. I was like, what the hell? This is University of Kansas. Is that a good university? Like, are you excited?
Somewhat excited. They got me a good scholarship, so that's good.
Nice. Are you you're in the comp sci program there?
Yes.
Nice. If I could go back in time, that's what I would want to do. But mechanical engineering was good. Like I think I knocked it so much because I always wanted to like program it. Like it took me a long time to understand that I really love to code. I never thought I could actually do it. So like I went into like these mechanical streams. But like more recently in my career, I've started to understand that a lot of what I learned in the mechanical program is really valuable when it comes to like systems and processes and like operations and that kind of stuff. Like I think there's a lot of lessons learned there that you don't always get from like other streams,
Yeah, if I
especially
remember
when
right,
you're thinking about analog stuff.
I think John majored in something more like mechanical engineering.
Nice. What's he up to today?
Oh, he's at a YC meeting.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know if Dioxus was in YC yet. Like I saw like a posting for um like on the YC website about Dioxus. Just don't know what's going on with it. Are you talking about the WebAssembly systems interface or Y Combinator? Doge. WASI? It's so like WASM, like you know how Dioxys targets WASM unknown unknown, which is like for JavaScript, like you can run it in the browser. Oh, like when is it coming out? They're I think preview 2 is probably gonna release around like September, but I don't know if like it's gonna hit full stride until preview 3, and I don't know when that would come out. Like preview 2 means they're gonna have sockets, which means you're gonna be able to do HTTP calls and probably WebSockets without needing a shim. And I think last time I asked a friend from um, Cosmonic, she mentioned it was coming out. I think September they're gonna see that stuff happen.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
using WASI right now, and the WASI repository has a PR open implementing sockets. So pretty
yeah,
soon, I think.
it's really exciting. Um, like I think the preview 3 will be when they introduce threads. Um, and that's when I think it'll be like brainless to want to switch over for me. Um, I spent so much time like trying to make WASI work without sockets. Um, and I think that like was a bit of a mistake, but I'm glad I got to learn a lot because it's like if you're using shims, you're you're basically in my like I feel like you're losing the benefit of WebAssembly the moment you use a shim because it's like the shim is I don't know how it works with a sandbox environment. Like to me, in my mind, like is a shim not outside of the sandbox? So it's like then you either have to create a container or some like virtual machine environment that's hardened. So I think I don't know if that makes sense to you,
Are you
Kevin, but
using uh WIT, like the WASM component model?
yeah, with BindGen, like the whole
Yeah.
bytecode alliance stuff is awesome. Like there's so many like kick-ass people working on stuff there. There was like at the last Kubernetes conference, there was like they run the WebAssembly conference during that time or the WASI conference. And like you saw people talking from like Shopify and like Cosmonic and Fermion and like all these companies. And it's like really cool to hear what they're working on. Um, so with BindGen, like Wasm Cloud was using Smithy files. So I think they were in the process of transitioning to using with BindGen, like when I was last working with it, which is cool. I think like if you're looking at the ecosystem, I think if you wanted to build a platform, like Wasm Cloud is probably the better option for building like, hey, I'm gonna be a platform as a service. And then Fermion is probably like, I'm building an application and I just want my own platform for myself and this single application. And I think that would be a stronger candidate for that. I don't know if you've worked with both, but um Wasm Cloud makes a lot of like decisions based on the distributed architecture. So they create a lot of interfaces. They have the Elixir runtime, so that like all those WASI binaries that you're deploying like as functions or as microservices, they're all connected through like an Elixir host. And I think that's really cool if you are wanting to manage like a whole bunch of people's apps, but as like an app developer trying to use that, it became very complex because it's like a lot of these interfaces and a lot of the bugs that can be introduced because of making these um, system calls, it just gets a little more convoluted. Like with Fermion Spin, you basically just import the SDK and you can connect to like a messaging broker, like Redis by default, but people have worked on using other messaging brokers. Um, so if you wanted to connect your app like that, you could. With Wasm Cloud, they do like NATs, which is really cool too. But with Fermion Spin, there's no contracts in place. Like it just, I don't know if you're what you're playing with right now, but it's a little complex for I found it like there was a lot going on when I was playing with it.
Thing I'm interested in WASI for mostly is working on like a side project thing that has WebAssembly plugins. So that's just entirely WIT and some WASI. Then I'm using WIT to
Nice,
define shims like you were talking about. So you can do like GET requests without waiting for Preview 2 to fully come out.
nice. Are you? That's one of the coolest parts about Ozzy is the plugins.
Yeah.
Like there was a few really good talks about that at that last conference. There was one specifically about plugins. Um, I think that's one of the coolest parts. For me, like the big thing for it is like the binary size, having like a sandboxed environment and not needing like Docker containers. Because in my mind, I want to be able to just deploy these WASI binaries directly onto like a bare metal host. That's it. Um, like I feel like you'll save so much energy and power just doing that. It's like with a Docker container, what even an Alpine image is what 300 megabytes, probably at least. And if you cut that down to 30 megabytes, it's a big difference of over the wire transmission. And then you have less to worry about at the networking layer. Like all you have to worry about is like the host networking. You don't have to worry about like the Kubernetes networking layer or the Docker networking layer as well. So I'm hopeful for it. Have you ever played with eBPF?
No, I have not.
That's pretty cool if you're into. I don't know how that relates to all plugins, but if you're like into the kernel level stuff, it's cool. Did you like the Wasm time repo, or do
I
you like
haven't
it?
looked into their code much at all. But as far as like WIT bindgen, it seems to work pretty well. It
I,
isn't, yeah, some of the structs. Okay, so there's like an issue. If you create structs and macros, how do you derive things on those structs? And they don't. We kind of face the same issue with the uh like the router because that was creating one version of that was creating structs. No longer does that, but why it doesn't.
so what are you trying to derive structs for with WASI?
With the WIT bindgen macro, I want to derive serialize on all of the
Uh,
structs.
yeah, like
There's ways to get around it. I create like clones and then you can use serialize with, but it's just ugly. Other than that, it's been pretty nice.
yeah, with Wasm Cloud, they literally had interfaces that handled the serialization, deserialization, and I think those were written in Rust. I those were not like handled by WitBindgen, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe with do you think it'll change with preview too? Because if there was no need to serialize because of no sockets, maybe there is a need now.
Uh, I I think it could change without Preview 2. I just need to open an issue and see if I can build it.
I haven't played with WitBindgen very much. Like I was using Smithy files. Is this a photo of what you're doing?
Okay, so last week I kind of talked a little bit about signals. So for the zero point 0.5 release, we're going to try to reduce the unsafe in core quite a bit. and that's going to let us do things like state that is copied. So you can think of signals as kind of like a user ref that's copy. I'm just curious if this is a good way of explaining it or not. Because I don't know. The differences between the two are kind of subtle.
No, I'm looking now. I'm trying. I just realized there was a little signal and a little state thing. So now I see that there's two different things here. I really like the concept of signals. Like to me, it feels like a message broker um, pattern.
Yeah. If you're familiar with, we need something like this for large applications. It was either going to be signals or selectors for Fermi. And I think we're going with signals because signals are selectors with Fermi, you just have more options. Instead of Fermi globals being the only thing you can select on, you can select something from any signal.
So would it be better then to not use Fermi now, and just use the state within Dioxus,
Use
like use
Fermi.
shared
This
state?
is stuff that is not built yet. I'm just
Okay.
prototyping ways to explain it. I have a version of Signals that's kind of built, but it's not published or merged yet. Um, and then we're also getting rid of the CX potentially, making a lot of that global. The goal of this is just making state easier to use in async blocks. So if signals are copy and CX is global, then you can use context API in async blocks, and you can just move state into async blocks really easily.
Oh, that's sick. That's one of the harder things to do right now, right? Like you have to create a clone and then use that.
Yeah, and then we can get rid of like use navigator, use eval, all of those things that are just the whole purpose of them is to get stuff out of the CX variable so that you can move stuff into a future.
And here you just need to reference it.
Here, there is no CX. So the CX is like a global stack thing.
So
So
that's what I'm
instead of
not seeing in the example. Um,
that part isn't explaining the example. This is just about the state. But you could just see like comp doesn't have a CX scope, right? That's kind
or
of
state
handled
or
underneath the
signals.
hood. Yeah,
So like right now, those two look identical, right? I'm not.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. The you could write the same thing in both. They behave differently. So in state, the thing that reruns when
Okay.
you write to some state is the component where you created the state in. With signals, it doesn't matter where you create the state. The only components that rerun is the ones you read from the state with. So since you read from the state, by formatting it in the child component, that component will rerun when you change the state.
Okay, so the state that I'm seeing on the left here, this is not the current state. Like this is what you'll be able to do with state in the future.
The left one, except for the CX, is the current state. The right one is what you'll be able to do in the future.
So how like I'm just a little confused then why you're not showing like the current state and like the event hooks and like the navigator and I'm just because in use state now, don't you need context?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have conflated the two. Let me get. Yeah, you would.
Okay, so that I think that's what's confusing me most about this is like it
Okay,
okay,
my version.
second.
Yeah, so
Oh,
current
there's
state,
even
you do need scope.
okay, perfect. Are you using Excalibur?
Yes.
Nice. I think the Mira board, I thought it was like a free tier, but I got hit by like a oh your trial is up. I was like, oh no, time for Excalibur.
Oh no.
Um, all right, so just trying to follow through this right now. So comp runs, child runs, change its component one. Child button clicked, status changed, comp reruns. New. When the component runs, state is created. State is read when the child runs. The child will rerun. So rerun, you mean re-render?
Yes.
Okay, when the state is changed, child button clicked, state is changed, the component reruns. I was really enjoying like the concept of signals. I think we talked about it a little bit, and I was trying to imagine how you create like um, that as a model. Because can you have multiple signals?
Yeah, you can. So the powerful thing about signals that you don't have with the state right now is you can have nested signals. So if you have a vec of, or a signal of a vec of a signal, and you create that in the comp, then you read from it, iterate through the elements, and pass each signal to a different child. Then whenever you change one of those children states, it will only re-render that specific child.
That's cool. And something else that I was wondering if signals would be possible to do is create connections between components that aren't directly nested. So if you're taking a state from say um, like a page component and um, you want to grab that from like a nested button, like would you have to go through the whole tree, or with unique IDs could you reference this state um, without being connected in the tree?
So right now, you would do that, use shared state with that, right?
Yeah, but with
Yeah.
signals, does is there
So
like a unique ID for every component, and a signal is somehow based on a unique ID and a reference to another unique ID? Like, how do you map a signal?
yeah, exactly. Every signal is like a unique ID. So right now we have three plus state models. You have like use state and use ref. They work similarly. You have use shared state, which does different things with subscriptions because it's provided through the context API. So everything that reads from it uh, will rerun when the state changes. And then you have Fermi, which is global.
Yeah,
Uh, all three of those is going to become signals.
signals. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
because
so sick. Oh, I
instead of
love that
use shared
so much.
state, it's just a signal provided through the context API. Then instead of Fermi, it's just a lazy signal, and they all work the same way.
I absolutely love that. Like, it makes it so much easier and more consistent to write this.
I think for most states, like if the state is just within the component, it should act exactly the same as use state. If you share it between components, the updates are going to be more efficient with signals. And then for the other update ways you get the state, it should work better.
And it's just wildly more flexible, it feels um,
Yeah,
like to
this
more
isn't.
scenarios.
Yeah, this isn't quite the same as signals you would get in like solid.js because your whole
I don't
component
know
is the thing
Samba.
that reruns.
And in Samba, what
In
happens?
in solid,
Oh,
just the
solid,
part
sorry.
that re-renders state will rerun. So in solid, if you did something uh, like this,
Is there a new photo or are you typing?
now I'm typing.
Oh,
So
that's not a previous photo. Sorry, I have to close out of that one.
if you did something like this in solid, and you got something from this state and computed inside of just a component, it breaks. You need to instead do something that maps the state. Uh, you need to do that instead. In Dioxus, the first one should still be valid. It's like not quite React anymore, and it's not quite solid.js or signals.
But you're
It's
not
kind of a
writing.
hybrid model.
Yeah, but this is also a new framework. You're not. You're inspired by React. You're not React, right?
Right now, the like update model works mostly like React, except for templates. But that's just an optimization mostly.
So you're saying that both of those will work now, whereas in solid.js, one of those doesn't?
So if you wrote the first one in solid.js, then computed would have 0 at the first time. Then if you change state, computed would still have 0. So computed would never update because components only rerun once or only run once. So you have to wrap things in like a use memo. So you end up having a whole bunch of tiny closures that rerun. In Dioxys, it's just your scope that reruns.
Okay,
But
so
when
the
that
second
scope,
one is an example of solid.js, and the first one is what Dioxus will be like.
yes,
It's much
you
nicer.
can do both in Dioxys and they both work. In solid.js, the first one compiles and like runs, but it's broken.
Okay, but you're saying you'd have to re-render the whole component for both of these scenarios in Dioxys, whereas in solid.js, the state is the only thing that's re-rendered for the second option.
For the second
Is that correct?
option, the use memo is the only thing that re-renders. In
Okay,
Dioxys, use
the
memo is
entire.
also the only thing that re-renders in the second one. It's just the first one doesn't break. The first one works as you expect.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying then.
So
It's
in solid.js, you have like scopes that are reactive. So the use memo with a closure there creates a reactive scope, and that scope subscribes to any of the states that it reads from. So it reads from state here. That means that when you write to state, that closure will rerun, and then it will like update the UI based on that. In Dioxys, there's a default scope. The default scope is your component. So if you read something outside of a like use memo or use effect or whatever, then it will subscribe to the component scope. Then in the first example, since you read state outside of the uh, use memo, it subscribes to the component, which means that when you write to state, it will rerun your component.
really cool.
Mostly you
So
shouldn't
when
have to think about that.
how much like when you're defining a state in a component, I guess every state that you define is going to be an individual line. So like right now you have state is equal to state 0. Um, what if you wanted to create states of more complex data? Like I'm assuming you're using 0 as like a Boolean, like 0 or 1.
It's just a number, I don't know, whatever you use as. It works kind of like hooks. You can use it exactly like you would with use state right now. But you can also do something like what I just posted, which is uh, a state that has a vec of states inside of them.
That's okay. So if you wanted, what about it like a vec or would a struct or I guess a vec would be better than like if
You could do a struct too.
okay, trying to think of different scenarios, but I guess vec would be one of the most efficient versus using a struct for some kind of state model, just because
Yeah.
you're
So
dropping any key value. pairs?
If you want to, you could put like all of your state in a global struct with signals, and then as long as you read from it in the right places, it's not less performant than you would if you had all of your state locally.
That's so
I wouldn't
cool.
recommend it because then it makes it difficult to reuse your components, but you can.
No, for certain things where it's like you want to verify that you're authenticated or something is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
Like
that is.
where your user ID is like your user ID, your username, like all that stuff. It's like it would be nice to pull that from global state, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The reason we were just looking at like all of this is because Uplink is like a social media platform, kind of like Discord, that's written Dioxus, and they have everything in a global state, like all of the chat messages, all of the user information, and they're running into performance issues, of course, from that. So this would make it possible for them to keep everything in a global state because they like how simple that is, but still have performance that works.
Nice. I was initially trying to think of if I should put everything in global state because in my mind that was something that could be more clean. But I think doing the research and with like your guidance, I came to like that hybrid of thinking where it's like only a few things should really be global, and if things live closer to a component where they're used, it makes it's more readable almost and more reusable. This is cool. So how's like have you like uh how's the work gonna progress on signals? Like is there plans to create like issues or
So far, it's just been like a lot of prototyping with me and John, but
nice?
yeah, I'll create some tracking issues to get that public. It's going to be most of the zero point 0.5 roadmap is going to be like new state managements, removing CX, and reducing unsafe in core by a ton. Instead of having pointers everywhere, uh, nothing has a lifetime. So scope doesn't have a lifetime because there is no scope, and then element doesn't have a lifetime, which should make errors a lot clearer. Then state is copy, so you don't need to worry about lifetimes there.
That was one of the nice things I think with the router was I think the lifetime stuff got a little less complex too. I remember I don't know if that's true, but I feel like I was experiencing things before with the original router that I didn't experience with the new one.
As far as passing state into the router.
I think it was with like async lifetimes.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm
Oh,
wrong.
yeah. uh, okay, interesting.
I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I'm not
We've
remembering
become
well.
better with hooks, making them more usable in async because now they need to not have a lifetime. There were some places before we had a lifetime in hooks and it broke stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Doge, what is currently preferred for work on Dioxus or make stuff in Dioxus? Um, Honestly, Dioxus STD would be amazing. The work you've done on that is like some of the most important work for like the ecosystem. Other than that, there's going to be a lot of core stuff, but I'm not sure how many people we can get working on core at once. Most of zero point 0.5 is going to be work on core.
I'm
Probably
kind
the
of
best
on that.
thing. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm kind of on the make stuff with the Dioxys path now because I'm not good enough to like contribute properly like you like Doges, but I hope I can get there. Like I do want to finish that index thing one day, but right now I have to also align to like building this app. It's like trying to kill two birds with one stone. I love the Doge's work on that standard stuff too.
I mean, I would prefer you work on Dioxys. Of course, that's up to you. And if you make stuff with Dioxus, that's great too. It's good to have something to point out, especially if you publicly say that this is made of Dioxus.
That was for Doge or me.
Doge,
Okay.
but you too.
I have to build an app. Like it's hard to do
You don't
both.
have to contribute. That's fine. I also really appreciate if you are making stuff in the Oxus, just giving feedback and like attending office hours and talking about this stuff with us is really
Well,
helpful.
if I'm doing stuff that's like I need to do for my app, I try to do it like with author right now. I'm trying to do it in a generic way that I can just quickly change to like a specific implementation after.
Yeah, that is
Just
also really helpful.
that's like A, it's helping me learn. B, I can kind of test what's going on, but I'm not so good with like the core standard, like all that stuff. I'm not that good at Rust yet. I'll get there with time, but it's like I do need to spend a lot of time building this app, or I'll run out of money and then I won't be able to do anything.
Yeah, of course. All right, it is past 10 o'clock, so I'm probably gonna hop off soon.
Yeah,
Hopefully
me
next
too. I
week
just saw Doge typing. Oh, okay.
we will have Dioxys 0.4 to discuss. We'll see. I think all
That's
of the features
exciting.
are done. There's just some blog posts that need to be finished up.
Nice. If you want me to read any or write anything that's not like too hard for me to do.
I'm not. I think yeah, like reading over what I'll repost them in the marketing, I guess. Uh, any feedback on that would be really helpful. I'll also post the
Yeah.
GitHub version, but just whatever you have time for.
If you link me the GitHub ones, I can. Are they PRs or are they?
It's just a Notion doc. Um,
Is there ways to leave comments?
yes.
Like something that I could leave comments on would be easy. I've the hardest part I'm finding with like reading some of the docs or like in a feedback kind of way is not being able to leave comments. Like with a PR, it's like I have to leave a comment on a specific line, and it's hard to dig through like all the files. And then with
Mhm.
something that's already posted, it's like I don't really have a way to comment without like just typing something in Discord and be like, "This page, this line, here's the URL."
Yeah, I'd like to get something better there. We
Yeah,
did talk
well,
about like having an edit button for the docs at some point, but I
yeah.
think initially it's not going to include that.
Well, I'm always happy to proofread if you send something over.
Thank you.
All right, later, guys. Happy Friday. Hope you have a great weekend.
Yep. Have a great weekend.